Recently, I conducted a poll on Twitter to see what my followers listened to while in bracket matches at pre-COVID majors. About 25% listened to game audio with headphones, 35% listen to music with headphones, and 40% don't use headphones at all. Throughout my time competing in tournaments, I've gone back and forth among all three options, but today, I'm going to make the case that not using headphones is actually the optimal choice. Before we can talk about the different options, I think it's important to talk about and understand audio cues. The first audio cue that jumps to most people's minds would be Snake's C4. You can hear him say, "There," and then you know to dodge the explosion. Other audio cues you might use in-game would include hearing parries and using attack sound effects to properly time your combos. However, there is another audio cue that many people don't think about, and that is controller clacking. I realized this is an issue for me back when I played Brawl. When I first learned how to chain grab with ice climbers alone in my room, I unconsciously relied on the sounds of my controller clacks to time the grabs. Then when I went to my first few tournaments, I found out that I could no longer chain grab consistently because I couldn't hear my controller over the loud sounds of the tournament. It wasn't until going home and practicing again while blasting white noise in my headphones that I started to become more consistent with chain grabbing in brackets. Another thing that is important to note is that reaction time to audio cues is about 20 milliseconds, about 1.2 frames, faster than visual reaction time. While this may seem like a win for using audio cues, you must also keep in mind that you can usually see the startup animation of an attack before the game plays that attack's sound effect. Because of this, I think in the context of Smash, this 1.2 frame advantage is negligible. There probably aren't many situations in which reacting to something is significantly easier with sound cues rather than purely visual cues. The next thing to talk about is how to stay focused, or how to get into the zone. I think this varies player to player. Some may use music to maintain focus, while others prefer to be immersed into the sounds of the game. I do agree that these methods are both viable, but it is from this standpoint that I think learning to play without using headphones should be preferred. I've seen countless times where someone complains after a match that they couldn't focus because the sound wasn't working at a setup, or that their headphones broke so they couldn't listen to music during the match. No matter how hard you try, there will always be some times in which the sound isn't perfect. This is especially true at majors, where pool setups often don't have sound, and even if they did, the stream setup and crowd is so loud that you couldn't hear it anyways. That is why it is important not to rely on music or game sounds to focus on the game. Instead, you should practice staying focused even with all the distractions of a tournament. So, how can you go from relying on music, for example, to playing well even with distractions? The simple answer is that maintaining focus on the game is actually a skill that can be trained with time. Think about training your ability to focus like lifting weights to train a muscle. Whenever you notice that you lost focus in the game, simply bring your attention back to the game. That's one rep. Each time you consciously bring your focus back to the game, you will get a little bit better at staying focused. Over time, it will be no problem to play at your best, even in the most distracting situations. It's possible to emulate this kind of environment if you practice at your home. Find a YouTube video full of distractions and play that on your headphones while playing some online matches. The last point I want to make is that the way you practice will be the most comfortable for you in bracket. For example, if you practice while listening to music with headphones, then you'll probably do best in bracket by listening to music with headphones. If you practice with loud game sounds, you might have trouble when those game sounds aren't available at the tournament. So when I suggest that not using headphones at all is optimal, I'm not saying you will immediately perform better without them. Instead, I'm suggesting that it's important for you to practice without game sounds. That way, your performance isn't hindered when you inevitably run into technical difficulties at a tournament and can't listen to the sounds or music that you're used to. Thanks for watching, I hope you learned something new, and I'll see you again next time.